Welcome to the Stories of Christmas podcast. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and I will be your teller of tales during this festive season. Today, we meet Offero, who was a mighty man in stature and strength, who searches the world to offer his services to the greatest king. Along the way, he serves several kings till he finds out who the greatest king in the world is in Offero, the legend of St. Christopher, adapted from the Golden Legend. There was a mighty man of old who dwelt in the land of Canaan. Large was he, and tall of stature, and stronger than any man whom the world had ever seen. Therefore was he called Offero, or the bearer. Now he served the king of Canaan, but he was proud of his great strength, and upon a time it came in his mind that he would seek the greatest king who then reigned, and him only would he serve and obey. So he traveled from one country to another, till at length he came to one who was ruled by a powerful king, whose fame was great in all the land. "Thou art the conqueror of nations?" asked Offero. "I am," replied the king. "Then take me into your service, for I will serve none but the mightiest of the earth." "Then that I am," returned the king, "for truly I fear none." So the king received Offero into his service and made him to dwell in his court. But once, at eventide, a minstrel sang before the king a merry song, in which he named off the evil one. And every time that the king heard the name of Satan, he grew pale, and hastily made the sign of the cross on his forehead. Offero marveled thereat, and demanded of the king the meaning of the sign, wherefore he thus crossed himself. And because the king would not tell him, Offero said, "If thou tell me not, I shall no longer dwell with thee." Then the king answered, saying, "Always, when I hear Satan named, I fear that he may have power over me, and therefore I make this sign that he harm me not." "Who is Satan?" asked Offero. "He is a wicked monarch," replied the king, "wicked but powerful." "More powerful than thou art?" "Aye, verily. And fearest thou that he hurt thee?" "That I do, and so do all." Then cried Offero, "Is he more mighty and greater than thou art? I will go seek him. Henceforth he shall be my master, for I would fain serve the mightiest and the greatest lord of all the world." So Offero departed from the king and sought Satan. Everywhere he met people who had given themselves over to his rule, and at last, one day as he was crossing a wide desert, he saw a great company of knights approaching. One of them, mounted upon a great black horse, came to him and demanded whither he went. And Offero made answer, "I seek Satan, for he is mighty, and I would fain serve him." Then returned the knight, "I am he whom thou seekest." When Offero heard these words, he was right glad, and took Satan to be his lord and master. The king was indeed powerful, and had a long time did Offero serve him. But it chanced one day, as they were journeying together, they came to a place where 4 roads met, and in the midst of this space stood a little cross. As soon as Satan saw the cross, he was afraid, and he turned quickly aside and fled toward the desert. Offero followed him, marveling much at the sight. And after, when they had come back to the highway they had left, he inquired of Satan why he was so troubled and had gone so far out of the way to avoid the cross. But Satan answered him not a word. And then Offero said to him, If thou wilt not tell me, I shall depart from thee straightway, and shall serve thee no more. Know then, said Satan, there was a man called Christ, who suffered on the cross, and whenever I see his sign, I am sore afraid, and flee from it, lest he destroy me. If thou art afraid of his sign, cried Offero, he is greater and more mighty than thou, and I see well that I have labored in vain, for I have not found the greatest Lord of the world. I will serve thee no longer. Go thy way alone, for I will go to seek Christ. And when he had long sought and demanded where he should find him, he came at length into a great desert, where dwelt a hermit, a servant of the Christ. The hermit told him of the master whom he was seeking, and said to him, This king whom thou dost wish to serve is not an earthly ruler, and he require that thou oft fast and make many prayers. But Offero understood not the meaning of worship and prayer, and he answered, Require of me some other thing, and I shall do it, but I know not of this which thou requirest. Then the hermit said to him, Knowest thou a river a day's journey from here, where there is neither ford nor bridge, and many perish and are lost? Thou art large and strong, therefore go there and dwell by this river, and bear over all who desire to cross its waters. That is a service which will be well pleasing to the Christ, whom thou desirest to serve. And sometime, if I mistake not, he whom thou seekest will come to thee. Offero was right joyful at these words, and answered, This service may I well do. So he hastened to the river, and upon its banks he built himself a little hut of reeds. He bare a great pole in his hands to sustain him in the water, and many weary wayfarers did he help to cross the turbulent stream. So he lived a long time, bearing over all manner of people without ceasing, and still he saw nothing of the Christ. Now it happened one night that a storm was raging, and the river was very high. Tired with his labors, Offero had just flung himself down on his rude bed to sleep, when he heard the voice of a child, which called out and said, Offero, Offero, come out and bear me over. Offero arose and went out from his cabin, but the darkness he could see no one. And when he was again in the house, he heard the same voice, and he ran out again and found no one. A third time he heard the call, and going out once more into the storm, there came upon the river bank he found a fair young child, who besought him in pleading tones, Wilt thou not carry me over the river this night, Offero? The strong man gently lifted the child on his shoulders, took his staff, and stepped into the stream. And the water of the river arose and swelled more and more, and the child was heavy as lead. And always he went farther, higher and higher swelled the waters, and the child more and more waxed heavy, insomuch that he feared that both would be drowned. Although his strength was nearly gone, but he thought of his master, whom he had not yet seen, and staying his footsteps with his palm staff, struggled with all his might to reach the opposite shore. And at last he climbed to the steep bank. Suddenly the storm ceased, and the waters calmed. He set the child down upon the shore, saying, Child, thou hast put me in great peril. Had I carried the whole world on my shoulders, the weight had not been greater. I might bear no greater burden. Offero, answered the child, Marvel not, but rejoice, for thou hast borne not only all the world upon thee, but thou hast borne him that created and made all the world upon thy shoulders. I am Christ the King, whom thou servest in this work. And for a token that thou mayest know what I say to be true, set thy staff in the earth by thy house, and shalt thou see in the morning that it shall bear flowers and fruit. With these words the child vanished from Offero's sight. But Offero did even as he was bidden, and set his staff in the earth. And when he arose on the morrow, he found a palm tree bearing flowers and leaves and clusters of dates. Then he knew it was indeed Christ, whom he had borne through the waters, and he rejoiced that he had found his master. From that day he served Christ faithfully, and was no more called Offero, but Christopher, the Christ-bearer, or Saint Christopher. And here is where I end my tale for today. But I'll be back with more stories, many more stories. Thanks for joining me today as we explore stories from around the world. If you enjoyed this story, please let us know and subscribe. For more stories like this one, check out the book Crazy About Christmas. Until then, enjoy everything this season has to offer. Merry Christmas. See you soon.